Hey folks, my name is Jim Aspel. I'm a board certified workers' compensation attorney in Farmington, Connecticut, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the three most common fears that I see in my workers' compensation practice, the things that people worry about the most. Now, people's fears vary from person to person, but there are some commonalities amongst everyone, and these are the things that we see time and time again. Now, obviously, number one is the fear of the physical consequences associated with the injury. You've sustained an injury on the job, you've broken a bone, perhaps you're facing surgery. Those things all come with a natural amount of fear. What kind of pain is going to be associated with my injury? How long is it going to take me to heal? Am I going to have any permanent deficits as a result of the injury? Now, workers' comp does try to alleviate some of those fears. Workers' comp will pay for your medical treatment at 100%. You should have no out-of-pocket expenses associated with the medical treatment. If you work with an experienced workers' compensation attorney, we're going to try to match you up with some of the best medical specialists that are appropriate for your particular injury. So in other words, we're going to do our best to get you the best care, to get you the best physical result. So if you're working with a lawyer, hopefully we can alleviate that fear somewhat. I do understand that this is a natural thing. It's your body, your bodily integrity has been affected, and that's something that you are going to naturally worry about. But we will work with you. Any good lawyer is going to work with you to try to alleviate those fears and to try to get you back to as close to 100% as is humanly possible. Okay. Number two, the second biggest fear that we see in our workers' compensation practice is the financial aspect. Obviously, your ability to earn a living has been impacted. Perhaps as a result of your injury, you're totally disabled. Perhaps you're partially disabled. You can only work part-time, or you're working less hours, or you're unable to work as hard or as long as you were working before. Now, in those instances, workers' compensation does exist to give you some financial relief. Workers' compensation is not going to pay you 100% of your pay, unfortunately. Typically, they will pay you 70% of your gross pay every week. So if you're totally disabled, workers' compensation is going to pay you 70% of your average weekly wage while you heal. If you have a light-duty work capacity, and I have some other videos out there on this topic, there are differentials, there are financial differentials that the workers' compensation insurance company is going to pay you to help bridge that gap between what you were earning and the fact that you aren't able to earn that as a result of that injury. So while the scenario is not perfect, workers' compensation will help to alleviate as much of the financial stress as is possible. If you work with an experienced attorney, we're going to get all of that financial benefit for you. We're going to work to get you your mileage reimbursed, your lost time for going to doctor's appointments, and we're going to make sure that those differential payments are calculated correctly and that money comes to you, okay? So workers' compensation does at least try to alleviate some of the financial stress that goes along with getting hurt on the job. The third most common fear that we see in our workers' compensation practice is, what effect is this work-related injury going to have on my career? Am I going to lose my job, quite frankly? Is it going to affect my ability to get promoted? Now, the reality of the situation in Connecticut is that a good number of employees are employees at will. So in other words, they can be let go for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason at all, as the saying goes. People who have a contract, a UPS worker or a state employee, something of that nature, different rules apply to them. But for the general person, you're going to be an employee at will. And just because you get hurt on the job doesn't mean that your employer has to hold your job for you. That's a common misconception. And part of the reason why that arises is that there's a program that dovetails with workers' compensation, and that's the Connecticut Paid FMLA Act. And the Connecticut FMLA Act will hold your job if you've been hurt on the job or for any other serious injury or illness, whether it's work-related or not. They're going to hold your job, your employer is going to hold your job, for up to 16 weeks. So by and large, your job is going to be safe for 16 weeks. At the end of 16 weeks, if you're an employer at will, there is no obligation for your employer to hold your job simply because you got hurt on the job. I've seen various scenarios. If you're a long-standing employee and your employer likes you, there's every reason to believe they are going to hold your job, and that's going to have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. But in workers' compensation law, there's no set obligation for your employer to hold your job while you recover from your work injury. Now, the opposite side of that is your employer cannot fire you simply because you brought a workers' compensation claim. That's against the law. So if they are going to let you go, it's going to have to be for a reason other than the fact that you brought this workers' compensation claim against you. There's a statute that prevents that from happening. Connecticut General Statute 31-290A talks about discrimination in the workers' compensation scenario, and that's something I would encourage you to take a look at if you're interested in that. So the long and the short of it is, if you get hurt on the job, workers' comp does not require your employer to hold your position for you. Connecticut FMLA does require your employer to hold your job for 16 weeks. You have to make an affirmative election to collect that FMLA, and that's something I would urge you to do, and that your employer cannot fire you just because you brought a workers' compensation claim. So there's that protection built in. There's the FMLA protection built in the state of Connecticut anyways, and most states do have their own version of an FMLA period, whether it's 16 weeks or whatever it happens to be in your jurisdiction. There may be a difference, but there is at least a set period of time where your job is going to be held. So hopefully that helps a little bit. We will try to do our best to alleviate the fears that you have. You know, I get that this is a very scary process. It's your livelihood on the line. You're hurting, and you have concerns. Again, if you work with any kind of workers' compensation attorney that has any kind of experience, we're all basically compassionate people by nature. I don't think we'd go into this line of work if we weren't. So we will help you. We'll try to do our best to alleviate those fears, and we'll get you the benefits that you deserve. Okay? If you have any questions about any of that, particularly with regard to Connecticut workers' comp law, give me a call anytime. We're in Farmington. It's 860-523-8783. You can visit our website. It's www.ctworkinjurylawyer.com. There's pages and pages about various workers' compensation topics for you to take a look at. If you found the video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up, and I would invite you to subscribe to the channel to learn more about Connecticut workers' compensation. We drop these videos with some regularity, and we always try to keep you up to date on what's going on with Connecticut workers' compensation law. If there's any particular topic you want me to talk about, shoot me an email, jfaspel@aspelaw.com. I'd be happy to do that for you. Okay? Hope you found it helpful, and have a good day. Thanks.